Today I'm going to be installing a condenser unit. That one right in the middle is the one I'm going to be replacing. This compressor will not turn. I've already done an acid test. The acid test came back negative. I'm removing the valve cores to speed up recovery time. Here's what my setup's looking like. There's no manifold. I'm using a third valve core removal tool. Got my two down there. I'll make a full video on recovery if y'all want. We pulled 6 pounds out of this unit so far. It's factory charged to a little over 3, but there is also 9 floors of line set. Unit is completely empty, line set is empty. Now I can pack up all of this. This line set is open to the atmosphere. I want to minimize the time that it is open to the atmosphere, so I'm just going to put some caps on this while I disassemble all of the electrical and cut my lines. I do have the disconnect removed from this condenser. I have also already tested with my voltmeter to make sure that there is no voltage present. Our contactor is engaged. That means there is 24 volts going to this contactor coil. I am going to carefully undo these wire nuts and then put them back on. I want to make sure that this wire does not rub against metal for too long, or it can blow the transformer. Another option would be to go downstairs and turn the thermostat off. We'll be saving that piece. This unit is bolted to this uni strut, so I have to take off this fan cover to loosen that bolt. I have my support bolts off of the uni strut. Now I'm going to sand and cut here. I'm going to cut here, and I'm also going to cut out this old liquid line dryer. I bent the pipe when trying to hook it up here, so I've got to redo all this.
If I go there and it's something that you did, you might have to pay to replace it because he wants a new one. I was like, you might have to pay for it. And he was like, I ain't paying.
And I'm removing the liquid line dryer. If possible, I like to ream out every piece of copper that I cut. The only time I won't do it is if I can't put it in a downward position, because I don't want copper shavings, even though the liquid line dryer can catch those. It's just good practice not to get them in the system. I've got all of my pipe fitted. I'm going to remove these caps, and I'm going to remove the valve cores from the service valves. Before I remove the valve cores, I'm gonna wrap the service valve with a wet rag. Gonna hook up my hose to the liquid line that is gonna go to my nitrogen bottle. This is my nitrogen flow indicator. I'm going to flow nitrogen while I'm brazing. And this is to prevent superoxide buildup inside of the pipes. Gonna crack this open and then just, right now I'm on purge. I'm gonna let it purge for a couple of minutes so I get all of that air out of the line set. Once I feel air coming out the suction side, I'm gonna go ahead and set this down at the bottom to braze. It's awesome.
Pretty badass, huh?
Yeah, it is really badass. I might have to buy me one now. Oh, sweet.
I don't give a shit. I'm harder, not smarter. That's my motto.
Yeah, mainly the only... Got all my joints brazed. Once the copper changes color, it's safe to use a wet rag and cool it off. I got my lines cool to the touch. I'm going to put this cap on and I'm going to pressurize this line set with nitrogen. I've removed my flow gauge. I've got this open and I'm going to set the regulator to about 200 PSI. I've got the line pressurized to 200 PSI. I'm gonna hit up all of my braze joints. I know they don't look pretty, but hopefully they're not leaking. One tip, if you have digital gauges, you can hook your digital gauges up and pressurize with nitrogen, and that will show you if you have any loss, because it gets down to the decimals, and that's a very good way to see if your nitrogen pressure test is good or not. I don't hear any hissing though, or I don't feel any bubbles, so I'm going to release the nitrogen to the atmosphere, and when I do the vacuum, that will tell us for sure if we have a leak or not. I've got 3 valve core tools hooked up. Valve cores are removed, and this way I can isolate my micron gauge when it comes time to break vacuum. I've got my 3/8 hoses hooked up to the valve core removal tools. I have my gas ballast right now, needs to be open. And I can go ahead and start the vacuum pump. Once my microns get down to around 3,000, I'm going to close the gas ballast valve. I love this vacuum pump. You can see the moisture it's pulling out. We're at 578 microns. I'm going to go ahead and take lunch and then clean up and then continue on this job. Now we got to hook up the control voltage and line voltage. Now this is a 240 volt system. We do not need this neutral. We have 120 here, 120 here, and our ground. It does not matter which lug these 120s go on, as long as one goes to L1 and one goes to L2. On the side of this contactor, it says to torque screws to 22 pounds per inch for the bottom lugs. I'm gonna set my torque wrench to that mark, 22 pounds. .248 microns is what we're reading. With the vacuum pump still running, I'm gonna turn off. I'm gonna put these valve cores in the off position. Now what I'm going to do is check the rise on the micron gauge after 10 minutes. It shouldn't go above 1,000. So it's been 10 minutes and we're getting very little rise from here on out. Now I'm going to isolate my micron gauge from the system. Remove the cover to the suction line service valve. Going to crack open the suction line service valve first. The reason I'm doing the suction line first is because the install instructions say to. I've got that cracked. With this cracked, now I'm gonna go open the liquid line service valve per install instructions. I have also installed many units that say to open the liquid line first. If that was the case, I would do that. Just follow the manufacturer instructions instead of Joe Blow HVAC on TikTok, and you should be okay. I'm gonna remove my micron gauge and my vacuum hoses. I still have all 3 valve core removal tools on the system. The system valve cores are still removed. I am going to hook up my probes. And the reason I'm doing it this way is so I can add refrigerant as needed, and it's going to be added extremely fast. I've got my refrigerant hose that I'm going to hook up to the valve core removal tool. I'm not going to tighten that all the way. I'm going to open this up. And what I'm doing now is just bleeding the air out of this line. I'm going to flip this upside down. I use the line set calculator chart online to get close to the amount of refrigerant that I have to add. I don't want to go over. I want to be just slightly under so I can dial in the charge, even though today is not a good day to charge by subcooling, as the outdoor temperature is below 70 degrees. So I want to get it as close as possible without overcharging. The calculator says 3.7 pounds. I'm going to add I'm going to add 3 pounds, which is about the same amount that I took out, and see where we are from there. I need to zero out my refrigerant scale, and then I'm just gonna do short spurts to add refrigerant. We are charging liquid, and I'm just gonna keep an eye on my scale. Since the valve cores are out and this has no valve core depressors, this is gonna go extremely fast, although I am paranoid that I might wash out oil, so I do it in spurts. I don't know how true that would be, but I'm just doing it because. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm stupid or not. I got my amp clamp hooked up to the common on the compressor. I'm gonna turn on all of my field piece probes. Our contactor is already pushed in because we have a call for 24 volt. Just went down 10 floors to turn the AC on. I guess the breaker was tripped. We are up and running. I now need to open my field piece app to see what the pressures are reading. So we don't have any subcooling. I was kind of expecting this, being that it is well below 60 out here right now. I'm just gonna add a little bit because our superheat's at 16. I wanna see if I can get that to drop just a tad. My charge is dialed in as good as it's gonna get with the current heat load outside. Needs to be a little hotter, but this should probably be okay. Reinstall the valve core. Reapply the caps. They want it 1/6 of a turn past hand tight, as these can leak, they say. And the Schrader valve caps. Don't forget those. Going to remove the power real quick. One thing I forgot. I'm going to add this hard start. I know it's the wrong kind. I am going to talk to the supervisor and have him order a factory one. But non-bleed TXVs, which this system has, install manual says that it requires a hard start. I'm just going to install this so it doesn't take out this compressor. And then we'll put in the factory hard start when it comes in. Also, I'm going to remove this fan cover so I can bolt it down to the unistrut. Sliding that bolt in, then I just got to tip this up and put the nut on it. Nice and tight. Now I can put my cover back on. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to engrave the unit number right on the unit. That's it, folks. System is cooling, up and running. My name's Dave. This fix is done.